I suffered multiple miscarriages early on in our marriage when we were trying to start a family. I had a miscarriage pretty far along and it was devastating for me.
Unbelievable experience. Unbelievable. And
You said it was life
it was life
changing.
changing. It changed my life. It
Yeah.
really did. Because
Hey guys, we're back for another episode of Better Together, and we have something a little bit fun and different planned for today. We are going to pull questions out of this box. We haven't decided what questions we're going to ask each other. We're just going to go off the cuff. These are conversation starters, questions that we use regularly with our family. I think we have like a dozen of these different boxes. There are lots of questions in them, and they're called talking point conversations with purpose. We love them. So we thought it'd
and
be
so do our
fun.
kids.
Uh-huh.
And the grandparents love them. There's one called Generations. Super cool. It pulled stories out of my dad that I've never heard.
Uh-huh.
And I got to sit there and listen to it. It's so cool. So highly recommend them. I saw a clip come up on Instagram directed right at the introverts that are getting ready for a big, we're closing in on Thanksgiving and Christmas time. For the introverts feeling super overwhelmed about the thought of having to sit in all those conversations. This took the point of the thing was like, just pull these out.
Yeah.
And just ask questions and generate conversation without having to put thought into the direction of where the conversation is going to just let the questions guide it.
Well, as your token introvert, it's not that introverts don't like small talk. It's just that something like this takes small talk to another level. You go deeper, right? And I think in general, most people value that.
The biggest surprise for me was how much our kids loved it. Started requesting it. I didn't think they would. I thought it was like, I'm going to drive this. Maybe Amanda will tolerate it. One or two of the kids might like it. But they all seem to really like it. They'll ask us at dinner randomly, hey, can we pull out 2 questions? And can we answer a question each? So I've loved it.
Cool.
Someday we might get sponsored by them. That's why we'll hold it up like this. And
not sponsored, but we'd love to be.
By a pickleball company. During this episode, I'm going to drink the tears of my pickleball opponents.
Okay.
Shout out to Scott.
Enjoy that. Okay, let's get into it. So we're just going to pick a card at random, right?
Yes. Are we going to have any skips?
What?
No skips. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me talk about what they are real quick. So each deck has multiple colors within the deck. Red is self-care. Yellow is connected relationships. Purple are self-reflection questions. Blue, getting to know you, and green, goal setting. So which one do you have right now? Green. So green's goal setting. Okay, we both answer, right? So you'll pull a card out, you ask me, and then you answer the question, then I pull a card out in reverse. We do reverse. Okay.
What's something you think you'll always value?
Ooh. I think I'll always value having you as a sounding board and a filter, because it helps. It's like the integrator visionary relationship, right? Like I'm a visionary entrepreneur, and you're better at being realistic, right? And so it doesn't mean the big idea is bad. It just means too many big ideas stretch the family too thin. I have always been better because my ideas get filtered through you before the kids just get driven up the wall. I think I will always value that as an important part of our family dynamic. Yeah,
I definitely think we're yin and yang. You tend to be like head in the clouds dreamer kind of guy, which I love, but I would say that I'm probably grounding for you. Glad that you value that.
Thank you. Now, I don't want you to just answer Jobin because he helps me dream. I want you to go a different direction with the same question.
What's something you think you'll always value? I think that I'll always value freedom and opportunity. I truly believe that opportunities are endless, and we are in a country where we have the freedom to choose, pivot, and reinvent ourselves. I think that's tremendously valuable. The freedom to choose and pursue opportunities is invaluable to me.
Good job on question 1. Okay, my turn. Any suggestion on color?
Maybe no, just pick one at random. Just don't pick a green.
Okay, this is yellow. In your opinion, what makes someone a good person?
Whew. I think that people are good when they put others before themselves. So I have core values that I align with in my business, in my life, in my personal life, in our family. The common thread is selflessness. Help first, do the right thing, do what you say. You're putting others before yourself. And yeah, I think that makes you a good person.
I don't know if any of us are truly good. I think we're all wired selfishly,
Mm-hmm.
or a bit selfishly at least. And
I
so
do too. And so I think that's why it makes me feel like when people do that,
yeah,
it sets them apart.
it's almost like it's not just that they were a good person, it's that they are a good, like they were just, I don't think everybody's biologically hardwired to just think about other people. I think it's
No,
a choice.
that's
And
intentional.
so a good person is someone who, despite the leanings towards selfishness, still chooses other people and chooses to pursue wins for everybody instead of just for themselves,
Yeah,
right?
I
So I
totally
agree
agree.
with you. What makes a good person? We're making the rule that we can't just echo the other person. That'd be too easy. I would say the same thing right now as what you said. But I think what makes a good person is someone who does what they say they're going to do, someone who you can count on. I think a good friend is someone who shows up like they say they're going to show up, right? I think too often we have tension in relationships because we want them to show up how we want them to show up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as long as people are showing up how they commit to show up, that makes them a good friend. And then we categorize them, what was Scott Resnick saying? The 5, the 15, the 50?
Yeah.
Dunbar's law. So you have your 5 closest, and you have your 15, and then you have your 50, and your amount of interactions with them on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis are based on where they are in that category, right?
Mm-hmm.
When people say who they are and then they show up that way, that might make them one of the 50, but they're still reliable and you can count on them. And so that's, for me, that's a good friend. And when people are good friends, they're generally good people.
Yeah.
I think one other thing, and this is something we've been talking to our kids about when it comes to bullying and who really peaks in high school. The good friend, the good person that shows up for their friends is the one that doesn't peak in high school. The peak in high school are the ones that create the fear where people are afraid to cross them. They're afraid to be a target. So they just kind of blend in and try to avoid being picked on or being bullied. The good one is the friend that shows up with a box of pizza when they find out you broke up with your significant other, or they hear that you're painting and they show up and they have their outside play clothes on and they're ready to paint, or someone who borrows their dad's truck and shows up and helps you move to a new apartment. Those are the good friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the good friends are not necessarily the most popular friends in high school. But when high school ends, I think elementary through high school, you go through this time where your friends are the people who happen to be in a classroom with you, happen to attend the same school, or they're your parents' friends' kids.
Well, it's so concentrated and insular, right? And so it's like this like microcosm that seems like the whole world revolves around this thing, right? When in reality it's like it's just like such a minute part of what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
It feels so big to you at that time.
The ones who are peaking in high school are the ones using people to feel better about themselves, whether it's tearing people down or whatever they're doing. But then you reach a point, often in high school, but often post high school, where you get to choose all of your friends. You choose. You have a car. You don't have to, your parents don't have to set up a play date. You don't have to wait to see them in the classroom. You choose who you're going to be friends with and who you're going to spend time with. And that's why all those people peaked in high school. That's the reason, is because people now can choose if they want to hang out with that person who is a bully or who is mean, who is selfish, right? And they choose not to. Instead, they choose to hang out with the ones who showed up for them consistently. And they have opportunity to make new friends and to create new boundaries. And so often the people that are peaking in high school and then don't really do much after that, it's because they spent 18 years just being a bit of a turd. Turds have an expiration date, and the expiration date is the day that no one has to hang out with you anymore, right? So then all those little people that weren't necessarily the nicest end up clumping together and having miserable lives together. They talk about the glory days in high school when everyone was forced to be around them and forced to be a victim. I love what we're teaching our kids about how people who show up for other people who are kind, people who speak well of others, That's how you show up as a good friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, we all want to have good people as our friends. Good question.
Yeah.
Good answers. What color is this one?
This one is a purple.
Self-reflection.
Are there any risks you plan to take soon?
I take risks all the time. In business, every day there's risks being taken. I saw a really interesting podcast about a billionaire, and he was being interviewed by this guy. It was really, really cool. The guy waited outside of a private airport trying to find a billionaire willing to be interviewed for 20 minutes. The guy invited him on a flight to Pittsburgh with him and said, my company became $1 billion company, but I live with the constant stress that at any day I could make a mistake and it's all gone, right? For me, I'm wired to just keep taking those risks.
Taking risks energizes you.
That's where the excitement is, right?
But the question is, are there any risks you plan to take soon?
For me, I've got tons of plans about tons of risks, and it's more about not doing it. That's the harder part for me, right? And that's where I am now in my life. Don't take that risk. I think the big risk that we're looking to take, it doesn't feel that big to me. Probably not even to most of the kids at this point, but it's moving to another state, right? And so that is in our plans.
Yep.
We may even cover that in this podcast.
Probably.
What it's like to move with kids. For me, I think that's the big risk coming up, but I don't even feel like it's a risk because it's almost the wrong word. It's so calculated. I mean, the sense of we're accumulating data and we're making decisions based off of that data.
It's so
right?
well thought out.
And so I love what Simon Sinek said in his TED Talk about knowing your why. There's a section where he talks about the decision-making process when they connect all the wires to the brain to see what's firing when we're making a decision. It's not in the data and language side of the brain. It's in the thoughts and feelings side. So that's why when all of the numbers line up and say one thing, you still might do the opposite because you just had a, quote, gut feeling, right? And so I think for us, both of our intuition is really good. It's a muscle we've exercised over and over again. Intuition, as we define it, is the ability to gather all of the most important data and then make a call based off of that data. Intuition for us isn't like la la la, like I'm just gonna like willy-nilly rapid fire, I'm gonna go with my gut, right? No, we collect a lot of data first, but then the data can be exactly the same and you can go two totally different directions. So I think how we interpret that data is our gut feeling that we then go with. So when we talk about our big move, it's like, is it going to be a massive move? Yeah. Is it going to change a lot in our family? Yes. But have we calculated everything that we can gather, right? And have we invested time in making sure it's not something that isn't planned well, isn't thought out well? Yes, I think we have.
It's a combination when you're making decisions, whether it's a risky decision or not. And I think that that's arbitrary, right? Like it can be a risky decision to me might not be risky to someone else, and, vice versa. But
I think we've experienced relying on ourselves and not having support around us. And I think that's a big issue that a lot of people face when they move, right? I have my whole network here and I'm moving. How am I going to do this? Well, we've done this multiple times together with babies, with kids, with one kid, with 3 kids, with 5 kids. Like we've done these moves and
never with teenagers.
Never with teenagers.
A whole different ballgame.
It is. You open the door to pushback. But we haven't had to leave support. Right. We've never had support. And so for us, it's like, can we move and restart some areas of our life again? Yeah, we know we can do it. We have the skill set.
You and I were talking about how your body will revert to whatever is comfortable, right? Whether you're talking about habits or decisions, I think when it feels risky, it's just perceived. Like risk is it's perceived. It's not actually a thing. Anything could happen or nothing could happen. Yeah. But I think like your body always wants to revert to whatever is comfortable. But if you've done the uncomfortable thing over and over and over again, it's like you don't have really that like internal struggle or like that feeling that it is risky. You can more easily just fall into it and feel safe.
I think it moves from risky business into calculated risk.
Yeah. And like you said, it's a combination of things. It's your lived experiences, your gut feeling, data, and all those things combined help you make a better decision on that risk.
Yeah. I think what some of the data we've collected too are the experiences where we've experienced that this other place we want to move to, we feel like better versions of ourselves, the best versions of ourselves. And it feels like home. You and I haven't felt like we're home in a long time, right? I think where we live now, we really like and enjoy.
And it did serve us well.
It has served us well for a long time. Where we're going, I think one of the most telling moments in the whole process of a family move was when our daughter was just kind of looking out the window right after we landed on one of our visits to go over there. And she was just like, I feel like I'm the best version of myself when I'm here. I just feel relaxed. I don't have stress. And I think for us, it was just trying to figure out and navigate, is that just like a holiday vacation feeling, or does she actually feel relaxed? And over time, I think it's been reaffirmed to us that it's not just us that feel like we're the best version of ourselves when we're in this other location, but it's the family, like the family unit. We spend more time together doing healthy activities outdoors. We play sports together. We are giving up stuff. I think you need to be realistic when making a big move, that you are giving some things up, and be aware of them, be okay with them and accept them. I think the positives outweigh the negatives. For me, when the question is like, what's the next big risk? I don't feel like I'm taking big risks. I just think when I try to answer that question, I look from the outside and be like, what would somebody else call a big risk?
Right.
Because this is just part of my DNA. It doesn't feel as risky. I think for you, it's more outside of your DNA, and it's learned behavior and a muscle you've built. You've been able to do some really incredible things at this stage in life is because of that, building that muscle.
I agree.
I love it when we agree. Are there any risks you plan to take soon?
Yeah. So later this week, I am traveling to another state, and I'm going to go on a retreat with a group of women that I've never retreated with before.
Introvert.
Just putting myself out there. Like I said earlier, maybe it's not a risk to you.
That sounds like the best weekend of my life.
Risks are perceived, right? For me, putting myself out there, meeting new people, opening myself up to new experiences feels risky. That is a risk that I plan to take. I think the rewards will far outweigh any reservations I have. But we'll see.
I think it's going to be awesome.
Thanks.
Okay, we've done a green, a yellow, a purple. Let's grab a red. What are reds?
So red is self-care.
Self-care. Have you ever met with a therapist? What was it like?
Yeah, multiple times. I'm a big advocate for therapy. I think therapy is great, and different forms of therapy. If we're talking about traditional talk therapy, I've met with multiple therapists throughout my life, particularly one time when I suffered multiple miscarriages early in our marriage when we were trying to start a family. I had a miscarriage pretty far along, and it was devastating for me. I got myself into therapy, and it was immensely helpful to talk to somebody and have that person reflect back to me that my feelings were valid. That was my experience in that season of life. And
why was that so helpful when I had been saying the exact same things? Because it was helpful.
Yeah. I can't quite put my finger on it or say exactly why it's more helpful to hear it from another person or outside perspective, but there's just something about having somebody who doesn't know you from a hole in the ground, and they hear you, they see you, and they validate your feelings. It's just different. It's different than when your friends or family are saying the same thing to you or validating you. It just feels more impactful. And
do you think part of that's because there's a little bit of a thought in the back of the head of like, they're just telling me this because they love me?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
And the therapist doesn't love you.
Right.
So they're going to straight shoot it.
They've got no skin in the game.
Is that a big part of it?
I think so. Yeah, that's why I said, she didn't know me from Adam. And so
Did she know you from Eve?
No. But I feel like a therapist's job is to shoot it to you straight. You know that they're going to
tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And your friends and family might not do that for you, right? To protect the relationship or whatever it is. But I think
that's interesting because it's not to protect you. Because to protect you would be to be a straight shooter, even though it hurts.
Yeah.
But to protect the relationship, not saying the hard thing in order to protect the relationship means that it's protecting themselves a bit, right? And it's protecting the role that they currently serve in your life and the position they have. So it's almost selfish.
Yeah. It's detrimental.
But there's balance, because I'm just being honest is another way of saying, like, I'm just being a jerk and take it because it's true. You don't have to say all the straight, hard truths. There's times and places for stuff. I think there's that dance that's going on all the time. Is like, how direct do I be right now? Then you bring a therapist in and they have no other skin in the game. In fact, maybe their selfish tendency is like, I want this person to keep coming back. I want to keep this client. The way I do that is I tell them exactly what I'm seeing and hearing. You've almost flipped it, and now the audience has their own self-interest to give you a totally different answer than what family, friends are giving you. And so I think there's an ability to believe what they're saying because of that.
Therapists are professionally trained. They went to a lot of schooling, and the good ones are they're on a continual path towards mastery. And so, so there's that too. Like, it all plays together for your greater good. But there are also other forms of therapy, right? Like, other than talk therapy, we have been opened up to different things like sound baths, and you went on a retreat recently and had some big breakthroughs in a therapeutic session, right?
I'll get to that.
Okay. Not this time?
No, on my turn.
Okay, well, let's flip it.
Well, are there any other therapy experiences you've had? I was thinking about Bowen Island.
Oh, yeah. That was a yoga retreat, but it was very therapeutic for me. It was
but for you, as someone who needs to get away from the chaos to recharge your batteries and stuff, that's therapeutic.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
And so that was getting away to a really disconnected experience. How would you describe it? Wilderness, like
it was
hikes.
Very simple.
Simple.
Wilderness retreat, and it was very gentle.
Yeah.
And it was restorative for sure. It was definitely a form of therapy. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. So what about you? Have you ever met with a therapist, and what was it like?
Yeah, a couple times. I'll do 2 examples. Our nonprofit works in a conflict zone in West Africa with a civil war going on, and we work with children. So we are constantly being presented with opportunities to save and preserve life. Part of our nonprofit work is, are the projects we do, right? We're digging wells, opening schools, opening a farm, agriculture school on a farm we built. We also run a taxi company with 15 taxis in this country that we work in. And that taxi company is a revenue generating stream that supports our projects, but it's also an underground taxi or ambulance service. And so we get the call when there's a child who's been injured, been harmed intentionally or by accident. And so that stacks. The weight of that stacks.
You have been exposed to some gnarly, brutal images and stories that most typical Americans aren't exposed to, I would say.
Yeah, even back childhood, right?
For sure. But in this specific instance, with the nonprofit work that we do, you're the direct point of contact, and they'll send you SOS images.
Yeah, so I get the call when a bomb goes off. I get the call when there's been a school shooting. The school shootings there are not a kid that shot other kids. It's grown men going into the school.
There are terrorists in that area.
And when our friends and our community are targeted, I get the call. It's my responsibility to try to save as many lives as I can. I can't save everyone's life, but I can focus on the individuals who help us execute these projects to serve the community, their families,
right?
The school, the children, and the teachers and their families. Like there's this group that are risking their lives to help their communities. So we want to support them as best we can.
So needless to say, that's a lot of trauma.
It adds up. And, the advice I got was, because I was, the thing you go through in your head is, okay, so if I go and I pay $175 for a therapy session, But I could have paid for a kid to go to school for a semester for $175 or whatever it is. I think it's about $400 or $500 to pay for them to go to school. A couple months of their education is the same as one therapy session. I'm like, well, I'd rather have a kid have a life and have an opportunity and stuff. Or there's a treatment. There's an ongoing treatment for one of the kids that was caught and tortured. It's $66 a week. And that's an insurmountable amount for them, right? Mm-hmm. But that's like a therapy session is 2 or 3 of those weeks of keeping this kid alive, the medication this kid needs, right? And so then you start thinking like, how dare I spend that money on myself? Cost. Yeah. And they're the ones that need the therapy, not the guy on the phone that's getting the phone calls and the pictures and the urgent call for help. They need it first, right?
Like we are safe and sound here.
The safe and sound person doesn't need the therapy. Yeah. But what one of my good friends, Troy, said to me, who was ex-military, Special Forces, now provides security plans for us and our team. Awesome. We love Troy. He said to me, this is what's happening. They're bringing you some really heavy stuff. And you're like, okay, just put it on this shoulder. Put it on this shoulder. Okay, stack it on your head. All right, lean over a bit. Put it on your upper back. Eventually, there's just too much weight on there that you've taken on. So where are you putting it so that you can accept more weight from them, more heaviness, and you can take that burden from them? And so you're actually serving them by finding a release. That was super helpful for me to talk through with somebody who said, I held my brothers in my arms as they passed. And he was like, why should I get therapy? Like they're the ones that went through the hard thing. I was just there. He said that cost him relationships in his life, and he didn't want that for me. So that was super awesome that he stepped in, shared that with me, and really encouraged me to go and talk about it. From that, I got an awesome homework assignment. I was told like, wow, it really sounds like when you're surfing, you disconnect from all that pain and trauma. I think you should do more surfing. I was like, that I can do. Say no more. Book my ticket, going surfing. So that's one experience. And a secondary experience was...
Well, hold on. Before you share about that second experience, I want to hear more about that. Tell me more about what surfing does for you, because we talked about traditional talk therapy, which you did, and then you were encouraged to do this thing that helps you sort of shut your brain off.
Yeah.
And that is a therapeutic act of self-care for you, right? Going on that yoga retreat or doing a sound bath is a form of therapy.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I think it's important to find things, actions, activities, places where we disconnect from the thing that's like draining our battery the most and creating the most head trash maybe. And we fully are free from it. Like,
do you think that's just like disassociating or like pushing it down? Or do you think that that's a healthy form of dealing with things?
I think if it's a moment to recharge batteries and then face it again, it's healthy. We've talked about our desire to provide free places for people to stay in our home here and on Oahu, where we have a house that we rent, that our staff lives in, and we use as an office. It has extra bedrooms. So we use that to gift people who really need that disconnect an opportunity to do that. And we've had opportunities to bless widows, people who've lost family members, and friends who are worn down. I don't think when they stay at our place in Hawaii, they're running away from their problems. They're recharging a battery and gaining fresh perspective. When I'm out surfing, I'm disconnected. I don't have my cell phone on me. I can't get a text with an emergency alert saying like this trauma happening. That's always a possibility at any given moment for me, because the time change, it usually happens at like 1 a.m, which makes falling asleep a little harder. But when I'm out surfing, people surf there's all different kinds of surfers, right? There's really aggressive ones that are not fun to be around. But I prefer, if you give me the option, I prefer to surf with friends on okay waves rather than having the best wave. Well, the best wave of your life is pretty tough to walk away from. I've had some quote unquote best waves, and I don't know if I'd give those ones up. Actually, my 3 best waves of my life, best experiences, there were people around, but not many. It was a very thin crowd, and it was mostly just me having a great time, right? Different experience. But typically in surfing, I'm talking to strangers being like, isn't this amazing? I do it all the time. When we're surfing in Hawaii in board shorts and I'm looking back at like Diamond Head, and I just turn to people around me. I'm like, isn't this amazing? Isn't this amazing? This is so cool. Like, oh, what a great day.
So what do you think about that? Do you think that gratitude helps you move through the hard thing easier?
I think the gratitude restores me and restores my energy to face it, right? And so that gratitude of just being really grateful for an experience allows me to charge that battery back up again and then go back and face that experience that I wish I wasn't a part of. I'm grateful to be a part of those hard things too, because I get to stand in the gap for people who can't advocate for themselves. It's a privilege, and I really am grateful that the path of my life has taken me to these moments and these opportunities. Restoring and recharging is super important. For me, that's therapeutic as well, surfing. If I say I'm going on a surf trip, I'm not just cutting out and shirking my responsibilities. We can now look at it as me surfing is a part of executing my responsibilities as best as possible. The other form of therapy would be something I'm totally new to, breathwork. And I said it, I was speaking at a conference 2 weeks ago, and I said breathwork. Did you hear like a couple people in the crowd be like, yes? Did you hear that? I was like, if none of you have tried breathwork, I was like, if you haven't tried breathwork and you've never done it before and you're unfamiliar, try it. It could change your life. 3 people in the audience were like, yes, 100%. They were big fans. So I was like, oh, they've definitely done it, right? I had a sort of breathwork experience before that you were a part of as well. It was horrible. I felt like the guy was like...
It was comedic.
He had like birds living in his hair and beads woven in. He was using all the words and phrases that had nothing to do with actual breath work, and he was trying to come across as a shaman.
We were supposed to have our eyes closed, and we're like looking next.
And we're supposed to hold our breath for 4 minutes. I was like, oh, real? Not happening.
When is this going to be over?
Yeah, massaging our auras. He walked around us. And so maybe that works for some people. That was like a no-go for me. I wasn't excited about seeing how many consecutive minutes I could hold my breath without passing out. And at the end, when he was like, see, I told you could do it. In my head, I'm like, I was mouth breathing.
I didn't do it.
I did not do it. And so I'm experiencing nothing here. So I went in to my second breathwork attempt.
Very skeptical.
Yeah. And I actually didn't want to do it. The night before, I was at this conference. I'm a part of an organization called GoBundance. Your commitment to everyone else in the organization is like, I will be open, honest, authentic, and I'm going to state what my goals and ambitions are. And then I'm going to hold you to your goals and ambitions, not mine, but to yours. And you're going to hold me to mine. And you're going to call me out when you hear statements that don't align with the direction I say I'm going, right? If your statements sound like a hard veer to the right, but I say I'm going straight, the commitment is like, I'm going to ask the hard question. Be like, okay, it sounds like you say you want to go here, but you're doing all these things that won't get you there. So what are you talking about here? Right. And so part of it was setting intentions for the conference. Like, what are you bringing and what are you hoping to take? Very simple, right? And so I said, I have struggled my whole life to forgive 3 people. And I've said all the words. I've done all the things. I've prayed about it. I've talked about it. I've shared with friends about it. I have no idea how to actually release it. And I don't know why, because I've forgiven lots of people in my life, and people that were very close to me that hurt me. I've forgiven them.
And people who didn't deserve it.
So why was I hanging on to those 3 experiences? They were pretty intense experiences, but why am I hanging on to those? And what is that costing me? And what is that causing in my life? The night before we set intentions, and I just said, what am I bringing? And I had no intention to say it. I hadn't written it down ahead of time during our think about the retreat, the conference.
Just came to
me. I said, man, I don't feel like I can live my full life and reach my full potential if I can't forgive these people, and I can't forgive them. And I don't know why. Brad, who's in my LA chapter, we were in Phoenix for this, Scottsdale, but he's from my LA chapter. He happened to be sitting beside me. Brad, I saw that you moved our names, so we sat beside each other. Thank you. I checked our table out originally, and we weren't beside each other.
Not watching.
Brad might watch. Brad, you're being mentioned. I'm going to tell him tonight when I see him.
Okay.
And so
he'll be on the edge of his seat, waiting for this episode to be released.
So he just turned to me and he said, there's breathwork tomorrow. We're doing this thing in the morning and you're going to be there. And I was like, nah, right away. So I'm like, no, I did this voodoo, hokey pokey, birds in your hair, beads everywhere, no deodorant. I did this thing, right? And it sucked. Doesn't work. It's malarkey. And he was like, dude, tomorrow morning, 8:00. You'll be there.
Had he done this breath work with this individual before?
This guy's known because he's also in the GoBundance community. So people know him. He's from Southern California. My expectation is that he probably had done it with this individual. And so I was like, nah. And we stayed up that night everybody hanging out, having a good time, went to bed, didn't set an alarm clock. I'm like, no, there's no chance. Woke up at 7:48 and I looked at my clock and I was like, oh, it starts at 8. I can go. When I wake up, I can go. I love to sleep, but when I wake up, boom, I can just go right away. I splash cold water in my face, chug a coffee, gone.
Not me.
Not you.
That might be another episode, morning routine.
You can talk about how your brain doesn't function in the morning and that you have Google it to support it. But brain damage, yeah.
I'm telling you.
It's not actual brain damage. Let's not get into that one. So just because.
Listen, I'm just saying no talkie before coffee.
Yeah, okay? I can agree to that. So we have a routine and it works. I went down there and I found where Brad was. I'm laying right beside Brad.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do this. When it doesn't work, I'm going to elbow him and be like, you just wasted an hour of my life or whatever, right? But I'm going to be near Brad and then I can figure this out. It was unbelievable experience. Unbelievable. And
you said it was life-changing.
It was life-changing. It changed my life. Yeah. It really did. Because I thought through each of those people and each of those experiences, and we're talking about.
And did he guide you through that? Did the facilitator guide you through forgiveness?
He set your intention. No, not forgiveness.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's so the theme of GoBundance is you wildly pursue your own goals and ambitions for your life, for the people around you, for how you want to show up. It's all about setting your own intention and supporting everybody pursuing their own things. One guy, his goal might be to have 100 doors, real estate. And another guy, it might be to have 2,000 doors, right? Own apartment buildings and stuff. Those two guys aren't in competition. They're competing with themselves only. The guy that wants 50 doors, he wants 50 short-term rentals he's going to rent out. That guy can still push the guy towards 2,000 and not feel weird about it, right?
Okay.
Because you said 2,000. And it seems like you're coasting now that you're at 1,200. Well, he could turn around and be like, you're at 49. Like, who are you to talk? No, he's just holding you to what you said you wanted, right? So everything in GoBundance is like that. And so GoBundance, like with this, I don't know how all breathwork goes, but with this, it was very typical of a GoBundance experience where he was like, set your own intention. You are owning this experience, right? And so, and we're in other organizations like that too. EO, Entrepreneurs Organization says the same thing, carry your own suitcase. But I just was thinking about forgiveness and I'm going to think about these people. And oddly enough, I was thinking about 4 different experiences. And as we got into it, I was right. I had forgiven the other people. And so it just dropped off. And it wasn't
that fourth one.
Yeah, that fourth experience, which I thought, I have said the words, I forgive you. I just want reconciliation. And that's how we restart a relationship. But I've already forgiven. That was 100% true.
That was just validating.
Yeah, just valid. It was super validating. So the 3, like one was a childhood sexual assault, a sexual predator, a teacher that hurt me and a bunch of my friends. Really hard to forgive. One was a teacher who came from a different generation and it did not work well teaching me.
He was a bully.
He was a bit of a bully. I really believe that was how he had learned to show up for people and love people, to push them really hard and do some pretty hard stuff. I mean, he was a football coach that came down and was teaching us, right?
For sure.
It wasn't helpful for me. And so I had a hard time letting go of that because it also made me believe things about myself that weren't true. And so as I got older, it was like, why would he say that? Or why would he put that into my life? And then the third one was someone in business who's cost us about $500,000, real money, and then more in lost potential income. Maybe $400,000 in actual cash that he's cost us. And I know what we do with that money. I know the people we help. And so there's just this anger of like, how dare you? And why would you do that? It makes no sense. You had no gain from it, right?
Right.
And talking about it before this experience, I would instantly be like angry with him. And I could talk about it and sound the same as I do right now, but inside I'd be boiling. I don't feel that way anymore. And so we did this whole thing. We thought through each of the 3, what wronged us, and we yelled, I forgive you. First off, I thought we didn't have noise canceling headphones because I was hearing the breathing of my friend beside me. And I heard somebody cough and it was really quiet and muffled.
So you're all wearing noise canceling
All wearing
headphones.
noise canceling, blindfolds, like we're listening to this recording. And I didn't realize they were noise canceling. So I was like.
Did you hear your own breathing? Is that what it was?
No. It was a recording of breathing. But I thought it was Brad.
Okay.
But it was a recording of breathing. So then when I heard this super quiet cough, I was like, wait, what? Pull it off. And I instantly hear sobbing grown men. I was like, what is going on here? I'm like, oh, we're all in.
We're all in.
We're all having this wild experience right now.
That's powerful when you can all give into that
120 men in the room. I didn't hear a single person come out of that and say anything other than like, whoa. One of the guys who I became friends with on that trip, my name is Jobin Barkey and his name is Joe Markey.
Okay.
So we were immediately friends. And in this massive hotel complex, we were like 4 doors away from each other.
Did you ask him his middle name?
No, I should have. Because my name is actually
It'd
Joseph
be funny
Benjamin
if it was like
into
Sven.
one name. Justin Markey? Joe Ben Barkey? It would be funny. It'd be better if it was Ben.
It's probably like
Chad.
Rob.
Yeah. But I went through this experience. I yelled out, "I forgive you," and then I just felt it release. And then you do this. The most important part afterwards, you write about your experience, and that's where you have your aha moments. So I was writing down stuff, and I realized the why. For me, understanding stuff, I want to know why. That's the way my brain works. You're not going to get a fast reaction from me if you're just telling me no. You're telling me yes. You're telling me go. You're telling me come. I know you can't always learn the why, but when I learn the why, it's very helpful.
Yeah.
And so I sat down and I realized that the reason I was holding on to it is because for me, justice is really important, right? I saw a lot of injustice growing up as a child in a developing country. With all of our international work, it's just so much injustice, right? And so I felt like if I let that go and if I forgave them, then no one was holding them accountable anymore. I was holding onto the anger, and that anger was the accountability, right? You can tell me 1,000 times that unforgiveness is like drinking the poison and trying to make them get sick. Like, it didn't matter. I had this responsibility to hold them accountable. That's what was going on deep inside, right?
Yep.
But what actually was happening was that that was an experience that I had reinforced for a long time. And then I held myself accountable and I didn't release myself from stuff. Other people would forgive me. I have experiences in my life where I make mistakes and I wrong somebody. Relational harmony is important to me. So if there's a disconnect or discord in a relationship, it's really hard for me. So I want to fix it. Right? Other people had said, "I forgive you. We're fine." But then would go back, 6 months later. I'm really sorry. I just want to touch on that. I can't believe that I did that. It was such a bad choice. I can't believe that. They're like, "What are we doing?"
Right.
And it's because if I didn't hold myself to that, then no one held me accountable. And if I'm going to hold other people accountable, I have to hold myself accountable.
And justice must prevail.
Justice has to prevail.
Right.
Because nothing bad happened to me, even though I did that made that choice I wish I hadn't made. Nothing bad happened to me. Nothing bad happened to any of those 3 people. The sexual predator, too many years went by. We brought it forward, myself and my friends, like 25 years after it happened. It's too late to do anything. It happened in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. What are you going to do about it? The other one, nothing happened, right? And then the third one, all that money, nothing happened. He never said he was sorry. In fact, people supported him because he had authority over us. He created the narrative, and we were just like, that is not what happened, but what do you do about it?
Right.
There's nothing you can do. And so all those experiences of like, well, nothing happened to them, so I have to hold on to the anger because it's the only justice, right? I was doing that to myself too.
Yeah.
So then when I released them, it was a euphoric moment of just like, I'm free. I have a few friends who I've been very open about how much that's hurt me. A few of those experiences, especially the one with the money. And I texted all 3 of them and I was like, guys, I'm free. I'm totally free. I still feel like he made bad choices and that he has things in his life that he needs to work on. And I'm not letting him off the hook by forgiving him, but I'm like, I'm not going to carry it anymore. I can't change it. I can't go back and get that money. And so it is what it is. I have to let it go and I have to just like move on.
Release it.
And then over the course of the next couple of days, I started to realize I've forgiven myself for things I was holding on to. Things like, how can you be a good person if you did this and that? I'm 46. You do enough things in your life that prove that we're not. I mean, those people that say that we're all naturally good, I'm like, are you looking in the mirror? Because I know when I look in the mirror, I know I do lots of good things, but I don't see a good person who just is naturally selfless. I see a naturally selfish person who chooses to be selfless, right? And it's a choice every day, and I don't always make the right choice. But for me, breathwork was life-changing. I highly recommend it. I made statements like this, and then I heard people say, this is actually what it is. Then I heard other people who've experienced it over and over again say, oh yeah, that's how it's described. 10 years of therapy in 1 hour of breath work.
Wow.
That's what it was. And
That's
so
cool.
if you've never done breath work, highly recommend looking into it, experience it, try it. There's nothing new age about it. There's nothing spiritual one way or another about it. You might have somebody who guides you that is a certain thing, but that's just their own personal thing. Like breathwork, there's something about the process that allows you to get past that self-preservation barrier that you put up that blocks you from getting to the root of stuff. That protective barrier, mental barrier we built, it just brings it down. And then you can actually think about it, think logically, think emotionally, and then release.
Cool.
Highly recommend.
Therapy is good.
Therapy's good. Man, that question took us right to the end.
So,
that was awesome.
These were some really great questions. I love that we picked them at random. We've never actually asked each other these questions.
No, these are totally new. We've gone through a lot of these.
Yeah.
But these are all new.
I was expecting to get a repeater, but we didn't. So that's really fun and cool. So,
I think we should do this again.
Definitely.
All right. I'm down.
Cool.
I love you.
Love you too.